Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is On and Off the Field with Derf and Dylan. Welcome to the show. As you're probably a little caught off guard that I'm opening here, as Dylan is not. Dylan is currently away, being a little preoccupied by a new addition to the On and Off the Field family, if you didn't see on Facebook earlier today. So he's a little preoccupied. So I still have a great show in store for you today, and we're gonna roll with it. I'm gonna do the best I can. I do have a special guest coming on later in the show for our main segment, so that's gonna be lots of fun. I think I got a real special guest for you guys. So I think let's just get started with our warm up. So On and Off the Field is on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel for uncut episodes, our live shows on Tuesdays, and other great content. Make sure to head over to onandoffthefield.com to learn more about the show, as well as where you can find our episodes and what charities we're involved in. So something new that we really ask a lot of our followers to do is to rate and review the show on iTunes or Apple Podcasts as it is now, so that we know how we are doing and what you like or dislike about the show, because we want to make a quality show for our listeners, because the show is really about the listeners. If we don't have listeners, we're just talking. And you can also find On and Off the Field on the RTF Sports Network.com, as well as their Facebook like page. You can catch On and Off the Field on Facebook Live and on the RTF Sports Network on Tuesdays from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And our new recorded show time is now Fridays from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So something else that I want to also bring up about the RTF Sports Network is that we have some really great writers on the network who write a lot of great blogs, and they don't get a podcast to talk about their show and promote it and everything like that. So I want to come on here and I want to say, check out the articles, check out the blogs. Go to rtfsportsnetwork.com, click on blogs, and read some really great content. They're constantly always posting new blogs out there, new articles, a lot of great different stuff out there for any kind of sports you're really into. So make sure to go to rtfsportsnetwork.com and get reading. All right, and as I mentioned before, on our website, onandoffthefield.com, you can find the charities that we are involved in. And while we're still involved with Feeding America, and we're still trying to raise money for that, our current charity that we're really trying to go strong on is the Boys and Girls Club of America. Dylan and I have some plans coming together. We're working on trying to get some details figured out. Trying to work with the Boys and Girls Club of Rochester and just trying to really promote some good, positive things in the community. So that's coming soon, but we still want to raise money for it because we know it's a good cause, and why not help the youth? So something that we kind of announced on the Tuesday show was the On and Off the Field Fantasy Football League, as well as a pick'em league. So we want to start a league where the buy-in money to the league goes to our current charity, which is the Boys and Girls Club of America. We're still hashing out the details, but basically the way that you'll be able to enter into these leagues is you must be a part of our OOTF family group page on Facebook. Pay the joining fee, which we're getting close to figuring it out, and then also be available for the draft. in those leagues, or in the fantasy football league especially. Dates we're still working out, but those are exciting things to look forward to. Something that kind of we're doing to raise money, but also have fun with our listeners and just play fantasy football. That's basically what it is. So like I said, we got a great show tonight. We got a lot of topics to talk about. I think it's going to be real good. I think it's going to be a real good show. So next, I think we'll get into probably one of Dylan's favorite news segments is the other sports. So there's not a ton of news for the other sports. Kind of hit a couple of the big ones that I saw when I was getting everything together for the show. So I think let's start out with NASCAR. So NASCAR released the picture of the noose that was in Bubba Wallace's garage at Talladega Speedway that was being used as a garage door pull. They also announced that Bubba Wallace was not the victim of a hate crime, and that the noose was on the garage. The noose was as a garage door pull since October of 2019. But just because Bubba Wallace wasn't the victim of a hate crime doesn't mean that NASCAR overreacted. We are absolutely in changing times for the country, and NASCAR is being one of the front runners in sports making a comeback, but also making a change in social injustice. So something I kind of thought was interesting, that the noose was there since last October. So you're telling me no one in the last 8-9 months thought that was an issue? So a little shocking. So also, I don't know how entirely NASCAR works when it comes to like teams getting garages and like who works in what garage at what track. So that was kind of a thought I had, that it's unfortunate that the news was there, but it's also, I think it's despicable that other racing teams who might have used that garage before Bubba Wallace did not see a problem with that being there. What? How? Yeah, it's just, I know a lot of things are coming to the surface now, and didn't think about it before for a lot of people, and then a lot of things coming into the national media. But it just seems weird that we're now talking about this garage pull that just so happened to be in the shape of a real noose. Just seems odd. But anyway, NASCAR did release a statement that the garage door pull did look very much like a real noose, and that their first priority was protecting their drivers. And so since it was in Bubba Wallace's garage, you had to make sure you protected him. So it immediately had to come down and do a full entire investigation, which I firmly believe in. And there's other ways you can tie a rope to make an effective garage door pull. Like, come on, people. Just because the fact that it was there since October 2019 doesn't mean it wasn't something back then. So, a little more on to some good news. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer has granted permission to pro sports to start activity in the state, or start participating in games with no fans today. So this comes as a follow-up to the MLB announcing that players will begin returning to their home ballparks next week, with baseball training camps essentially starting on July 1st, which would be next Wednesday. So it's exciting to see that Michigan is finally kind of getting on the right track with coronavirus, and that we can actually start seeing the bigger picture for sports coming into play. So good news for MLB now that they finally have a deal that was proposed back in March. But we had a little rant last week or earlier in the week about that. So I think we can move on. So, and also with sports coming back, the NBA has shared with its players a comprehensive security plan to help enforce the health and safety protocols it announced last week, and to make sure that it can secure its campus at the ESPN Wide World of Sports complex for the resuming of the 2019-2020 season. So in this plan, the league will use local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies, as well as experienced venue and contracted security professionals, as well as team security professionals. Also, multiple security departments are going to be monitoring any threat intelligence that may put the NBA at risk. So because all the NBA is going to be kind of in a centralized location, essentially, there's a lot more like Homeland Security is going to be there. I know Disney's top end security is going to be there, just to make sure that there's any evidence, mainly on the internet, that there's any threats towards the NBA or towards any players, because this pandemic is very much a biological issue with the pandemic, that this could turn into biological warfare. But fingers crossed we don't have any issues when the NBA returns playing and we can watch some great NBA basketball. So, I mean, basically they're locking it down like military bases, just to make sure that players and coaches can be safe as possible, so that we can finish the season and crown an NBA champion, which, if that's what we have to do for sports to return, then so be it. So I believe that is all we have for the other sports. So the part we can get to, I'm going to move on to the NFL news. So something that kind of dropped in on Tuesday, kind of shortly before our live show, but we had a full lineup, so we decided to move it to today, was that Martha Firestone Ford has stepped down as the principal owner of the Detroit Lions and will be succeeded by her daughter, Sheila Ford Hamp, as the club's principal owner and chairman. Martha's husband, William Clay Ford Sr., had bought the team back in 1963, and Martha took over after her husband's death in 2014 at the age of 94 people. I couldn't imagine running an entire organization at the age of 94, but that's great to hear Martha did it. So by passing down the club down to her daughter Sheila, this will allow the Ford family to continue to drive the Detroit Lions into the future. What does that mean for Matt Patricia? Win or find yourself a new job. Probably pretty point blank about that. I see Patricia and the GM in Detroit probably not having a job after this year with the new change in ownership, because, you get a change in ownership and they got to put their mark on a team. I could see Sheila kind of being like, nope, this is going to be my team. My parents did it one way. I'm doing it a different way. And she's not going to see the effectiveness of Matt Patricia's coaching, the team's not going to produce results, and it's going to be all right. Time to go. Clean house. Let's start over. So some new news for the Detroit Lions organization as a whole, but also coming out today was the announcement from Matt Rule, the first-year head coach of the Carolina Panthers, that he is considering kneeling during the national anthem when the season starts. So he was quoted on national media saying that I would consider anything as we move forward. I am supportive of the cause. I'm supportive of the movement. I am supportive of social justice. I think for every person, coach or player, that will be a very personal decision. I think it has to be made at the right time and the right reason for everybody. So it's definitely a tough decision for a lot of these players that don't understand what's going on in the world right now with social injustice. And it's good to kind of hear that coming out before training camp, before even training camp starts for the NFL, hearing these coaches being in full support of their players, saying, yes, I will kneel with you if I'm going to support you, I'm going to be out there with you kneeling during the national anthem. And Rules said this before to his players that he will support him when he was back in Baylor. And so he support them for expressing their views on social injustice by saying, I will support my players with whatever they do, and then when the time comes, I will really think deeply about what is the best thing for me and what is the best way I can show my support. So just great news to hear that this first-year head coach is really just coming in. He's not pulling a Rex Ryan where he's like, I'm a player's coach. I'm all about the players. No, he's coming in. He knows there's a job to be done. He knows that there needs to be some discipline, but at the same time, you got to be people, and you have to support your players. You got to let them grow. So great news to hear out of the Carolina Panthers organization with Matt Rule kind of being there for his players. Be interesting to see how many other coaches kind of step up and announce that, or just say in general, not have to making a big announcement, but just saying that I'm there for my players. I will be there with them, whatever decision they decide to make. So also coming out of today is New Orleans Saints safety Malcolm Jenkins, who is a 12-year veteran in the league, but also a member of the NFL Players Association executive committee. And he has voiced his concern about player safety and saying that he would only feel comfortable returning to play football if the risk surrounding coronavirus is really eliminated. He also claims that the NFL is a non-essential business because of all the risk that's with the virus. So you kind of think here, well, the NBA is coming back. Why aren't they a non-essential business? Well, the NBA is kind of doing it a little differently. They have a much smaller number of people in the league compared to the NFL, and which allows them to attempt this bubble essentially, playing in Orlando, so that they contain their players and reduce the risk of the coronavirus getting in there, especially with them testing when they come in and whatnot. The NFL has over 2,000 people in the league among the 32 teams. So it's damn near impossible to contain everyone in a quote-unquote bubble for each team, which is just going to lead them to kind of going on the honor system of whether someone's feeling okay or not when they report to the facility, and if they're following proper procedures of social distancing. Yes, they can temperature check them every day. It might not always show where that day that they might have it, and then now you spread it to 100 people in the facility. So it's interesting to say that here to Malcolm Jenkins kind of say, yeah, I'm not coming back until we really have this eliminated. Or he's not going to feel comfortable coming back until we really have it eliminated. And it's also been kind of voiced by other players. I know most recently also was Ezekiel Elliott, who tested positive for coronavirus and was saying that, yeah, we're really a non-essential business, that this virus could just basically destroy, because we don't have a bubble plan, basically, to contain our people and our players so that we can stay healthy for the entire season. Does make me a little curious to see what happens to the roster cuts in the preseason. I'd be tempted to say that the NFL doesn't really make a ton of cuts if they're worried about not having enough players to roster a team. So we'll have to see how that goes. So on the thoughts of players being concerned about returning to play football, the NFL has advised teams today to plan on starting on time for training camps next month, per league executive vice president / general counsel Jeff Pash. So everything is on schedule, no delays here for the NFL as on this day. So basically, being on time for the training camps means that players will report no later than July 28th. I did see that rookies and specially selected players will be allowed to return before that, especially for our rookies, because they've only been learning the offense or the defense virtually. There really hasn't been a lot of in-person training for teams, so definitely going to be hard for this rookie class to learn if there's any kind of delay with training camp, or if the season gets put on hold, if we get like a spike or anything. So definitely good to hear right now that training camps will be on schedule. We can expect football to be practiced July 28th. So with Dylan not being here, I kind of thought, let's try it. Let's try a new segment. So Dylan has his kind of own segment with Moran Talks Morons. So I thought, well, you know what? Derf needs a segment too. So I thought really hard about it. And I was thinking, what can I do with the name Derf? What can I make kind of a sports segment, but at the same time could just be something positive? So I came up with this. I came up with what Derf's Diggin. So basically what Derf's Diggin is just going to be about talking about something that's I'm really into right now. Mainly a lot of positive stuff, or just something in sports in general that I'm digging right now. And hopefully as you the listeners, you're like, hey, you know what? Derf's digging it. I'm going to dig that too. So this week, I'm digging golf. Now, first kind of disclaimer here. Golf is not my strong suit. I'm still learning. But you know what? I have fun doing it. So for the longest time, I wasn't a big golf guy. I was like, yeah, golf's for old people. No one needs to play that. So I had been to the driving range once, when I was a lot younger. He played 9 holes once with my dad, and I was like, man, I am really bad at this. But you know what? I tried it. So I was like, maybe I'll get better one day. Maybe I'll get back into it, but I don't want to spend the money on clubs right now. They're expensive. People sink a lot of money into golf. That's just not my thing. So just so happened that back during my college years, one summer while I was working for a condo, like real estate property, and I was cleaning out a condo of like all this stuff that someone was left behind, that they had sold the condo and moved somewhere else. They moved on. I'm like, all right, well, we got to clean this place out so it can get resold, can get sold, and someone else can just move in here. So we're cleaning it out, and just so happened I look over to the corner. I'm like, man, that's 2 sets of golf clubs that they just left behind. I'm like, well, they're not coming back for it, so maybe it's a sign. Maybe I'm going to learn how to play golf. So I condensed them all to one bag. I'm like, all right, they're a little on the old side, but you know what? If I'm going to learn how to play golf, so why not use a free pair? So, maybe I'll get into golf now. So, ironically, 10 years go by, have not played golf. And about 2 weeks ago, Dylan and I, they're like, oh, let's go to Dylan, myself, and one of our buddies, Matt, like, hey, let's go to the driving range. I'm like, well, I don't have a driver, but I do have an entire set of clubs, or set and a half of clubs, so yeah, I'll go. So we get there. Of course, it's a live show night, like, oh man, we're gonna run out of time. We gotta get back for the live show. But we're there, we're hitting balls, and I'm like, man, I'm really not that bad at this. I'm still a little rusty. I still have more learning to do, but man, I'm crushing those balls down the fairway. I'm like, man, this is kind of fun. So later that week, they're like, oh man, we gotta play 9 holes now. Like, we gotta get you to see how, man. Our buddy Matt's like, hey, I thought you said you didn't play golf before. Like, yeah, I didn't. And he's like, oh, okay. So a couple days later, we played 9 holes, and just like I thought, I'm terrible at it. Every single part of the game, I'm like, man, I am struggling today. Why couldn't I just do what I did at the driving range a couple days ago? But Dylan and Matt, they were like, oh, for a first time out, it's not bad. I'm like, all right. So, you look up a couple things, you practice your swing, you go to the driving range again, you're like, and you get done at the driving range, and I gotta say, nothing beats that feeling than crushing a little white ball 200 plus yards and watching it hit a flag. So, yeah, so I'm really into golf right now. I think it's fun, just going out there, just swinging real hard, hit that ball. Yeah, I didn't think I could follow a golf ball in the air like a lot of the professionals do, but I've actually gotten pretty good at it. So, after I played those 9 holes, I was talking to my father-in-law, and I'm like, man, I wish I had a driver. Like, I could get a used one at the golf course, but I don't know. So he was like, hey, I got an extra driver. Like, you can just have it if you want. I'm like, all right. I got a whole set now. I'm good to go. So, working on the driver swing. But then, you know what the piece de resistance is playing golf? A golf shirt. I got some the other day, and I was like, what in the world? How have I been missing this my entire life? These things are so comfortable. They are so breathable that when you put them on, like, how was I playing golf in a t-shirt before? Like, what am I doing? But this warmer weather coming up here, I'm going to need those golf shirts. So That was What Derf's Diggin. So we are going to move on to our main segment. And man, oh man, do I have a special guest for you guys. Please welcome Michel Buchheister.
What is up, Derf? What's going on, my man?
What's going on, Michael?
Can you hear me all right, man?
So I can hear you. You're a little on the quiet side, but I can hear you.
I'll turn up the mic a little bit for you, bub. There you go.
So there you go. That sounds good. So Michael is from Just for Clicks, as well as correct me if I'm wrong, the CEO of RTF Sports Network. So we got a really special guest tonight.
Yep, the CEO, man. Put that name on the desk. It makes me feel special.
Oh yeah, definitely. I did hear that you're changing the name of the show, maybe?
Yeah, so me and my co-host Mike LeBlanc, we are rebranding the Just for Clicks podcast into Mike and Mike's Man Hour. The reasoning behind that is because when Mike was brought on, it was simply just a solo show. It was simply just myself. And for those of you that follow me on Twitter and stuff like that, I am a social troller. Like, I troll people just to get underneath their skin. I mean, like, I might agree with you. I do think the Bills will go 11-5, but every time I come on to your guys' show, I'm like, oh, the Bills are going to be 5-12, right? So it is just the Just for Clicks movement is catching such traction that that Mike and myself are, we just need to rebrand and go a different direction for our sponsors and that kind of thing. So
nice. I am looking forward to seeing the changeover to Mike and Mike. To Mike and Mike the Man Hour.
Mike and Mike Man Hour.
Hour. All right. Yeah. So
it is going to be the same exact thing that we're doing for Just for Clicks. Some NFL talk, college talk as well, but sprinkling like a little bit of man stuff. Like putting steaks on the grill. Why do people are just not having very good success in life? Just that kind of thing. So
nice. Awesome. Well, you heard it, listeners. You check that show out. That's a good show there. So get to our main segment here and kind of continue on from last week, what Dylan and I talking about, kind of our surprise sleeper players. Talked about the AFC last week, so this week we're going to kind of go over the NFC. So I have both lists here, but I think we're going to go over my list, Justin. And then definitely. You can kind of tell me if I'm wrong or if I'm right. I'm not entirely sure what Dylan's comments here are for his players, so I don't want to assume something and then he tell me later, man, you were completely wrong. What are you doing? So let's go ahead and start with the NFC East. So we'll start with the Philadelphia Eagles. The sleeper kind of person to watch, I'm thinking, for the Eagles is cornerback Darius Slay. Now, the reason I picked him is because the Eagles were atrocious in the secondary last year. They need to stay healthy this year. So can he keep that secondary healthy and not let that defense be atrocious on the back end?
See, that is tough for me to say because I didn't think the defense had so many injuries as the offensive side of the ball. On the defensive side of things are such, like, you can pretty much plug and play any player in the safety and the cornerback position. So for a safety to be a sleeper pick, that is kind of tough for me to agree with that. But yes, Slay does need to stay healthy because they do play the Dallas Cowboys twice this season with three big name receivers. Like you have Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, and the other one's always slips my mind. what's his name, but yeah, so they had three
Oh,
big
yeah.
name receivers. So and just their schedule looking forward. I'm pulling up their schedule right now, and they play some pretty notable offenses. You know, they play the Cowboys offense, they play the Baltimore Ravens offense that has to be man to man, so you can put 7-8 guys in the box to lock down Lamar Jackson. So I'm going to go against my gut here 100%. But yes, Slay does have to stay healthy for the Eagles to be successful, and I think he does stay healthy.
Yeah, I hope so. It'll be big. We need some more competition in the NFC. It's now more 9-7, 8-8 winning the division. We need some good wins there. So moving on to the Dallas Cowboys, I didn't just pick one player. I picked the entire offensive line because they lost some key players on that line this offseason, with that, especially Travis Frederick leaving, making his retirement. My concern to make sure to watch this line is that can Zeke perform with this new regime of linemen on this team? And if he doesn't, will that make the Cowboys regret their decision if they get a long-term deal with Dak Prescott on July 15th?
Yeah, so obviously Frederick's retiring definitely hurt the Dallas Cowboys offensive line. He was the staple on that line for 5 or 6, 7 years. I can't remember exactly how long it was, but he's been there for a while. But he also hasn't been healthy for the last 2 years either. I think he's played maybe a total of 16 or 17 games in the last 2 seasons. So that's equivalent to like 8 games a year. That's half a season. But the biggest key, I think, is Tyron Smith, that left tackle. He has also been in and out of the lineup as well the last couple years. So with I believe it was a back injury or something to that effect. Can't remember for sure. But they did draft some young kids. So they have a center that's is a rookie, I do believe. Their right guard is their second year player, and their right tackle, he got drafted last year, which will be ultimately taking the center spot from my understanding. But yes, this line has to stay healthy. But I'm not too worried about the young guys. I'm worried about Tyron Smith being healthy because we saw it when Tyron Smith was in there. Zeke was able to run the ball 100+ yards every game. When he wasn't, you're looking at 50 yards, top for Zeke with like 5-10 touches, the total. I mean, and with Dak Prescott being that answer now in signing that franchise tag, you are putting a lot of pressure on Dak Prescott, and he doesn't handle the pressure that well. He needs Zeke to do well. Therefore, Zeke needs Tyron Smith. So I do like your pick from the offensive line, but I'm really going to focus on Tyron Smith. He has to stay healthy.
Good. That's fair point. Yeah. So I think for a little, and you kind of mentioned it here with Dak Prescott, just a little quick tangent here. I think that's why the Cowboys don't want to pay. That's why they franchise tagged him off the bat instead of paying and getting the contract for him. It's kind of like you said, if Zeke doesn't get the ball running because that line doesn't perform, then now the ball falls in Dak's hands. He has to make those plays. But when he's under pressure like that, he struggles. And I think that's where the Cowboys organization's like, I don't know. It kind of makes you think back. Well, remember, he's a 4th-round pick. You see a lot of great quarterbacks come out of the later round. You don't see as many great quarterbacks coming out of the later rounds, but it's kind of like this offensive line is the key to Dak Prescott's money.
Yeah, like I definitely understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But to add to your point there, that we don't see many great quarterbacks in the late 8 rounds, but also how many quarterbacks do you see drafted in the late 8 rounds? You always see the quarterbacks always get drafted in the 1st, 2nd round, sometimes 3rd and 4th round, being like you very rarely see quarterbacks drafted after the 4th round. Why? Because people want their quarterbacks early. Quarterback is where the money is made, where the teams are made and break. So you have to spend your top round picks on quarterbacks. So
yeah, definitely. It doesn't hurt that the media kind of pushes them up the ladder board anyway when it comes draft time. But So moving on to the New York Giants, I went with the rookie offensive tackle Andrew Thomas, and the kind of reason why I went with him is it's a little similar to the Cowboys, but I think the biggest thing is that the Giants have a lot of young talent on that offense. I mean, we'll see how Daniel Jones plays out, but they have Saquon Barkley there who just gets it done. And now you need to build this lineup. So they go with Andrew Thomas, and maybe this is the start of the real foundation building for this Giants team to kind of help this offense really get better and kind of live up to that potential.
Yeah, I definitely like your sleeper pick there. But look at some of the teams that they play here. Some of these defenses that they're getting ready to play. They're playing the Pittsburgh Steelers very first week. That defensive front seven is pretty strong, top 10 in the league. The Chicago Bears, they still have Khalil Mack. They still have that mean defensive tackle. I can't think of his name right now. Then they play San Francisco 49ers. They got, they drafted well. They have quite arguably the best defense in the league. So those first 3 weeks could make or break the New York Giants in that left tackle position, protecting Daniel Jones' blind side, because you have three great edge rushers coming at you the first weeks of the season. Welcome to the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always interesting to see kind of how these tackles react to these professional pass rushers as compared to the college players.
Right.
Making that transition. But so moving on to the Washington Redskins, I kind of went on the other side of the ball here with the Redskins. So I'm going to keep an eye on Montez Sweat. I think the reason I want to keep an eye on him because I want to kind of see if he can improve his game with this focus from the offensive, from their opponents on the offense, kind of shifting their focus towards the rookie Chase Young, who they drafted this year. And can the Redskins with Ron Rivera kind of create that dynamic duo on the defensive line, on the edge, and kind of be that 1-2 punch, rushing, kind of make these offenses a little nervous about them coming off the edge. And you don't normally see a ton of that. I feel like you don't normally see a ton of this from the Redskins just because they've been kind of that weaker team for so long. But it'll be interesting. I think it'll be interesting to see how the Giants' offensive line, kind of what we just talked about, and how the Cowboys' offensive line kind of do they get affected by this kind of 1-2 punch possibly with Sweat and Young?
Right. So I have been pretty much in it with the agreement with you in all these picks, except for this point. I don't think Montez Sweat is even projected to be a starter because I think Chase Young is now projected over him to start at that right defensive end. So I don't think yes, defensive players do sub in and out more often to keep fresh, but he definitely isn't going to have a impactful season being a backup.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely hard if he's not going to be starting, and if he really just loses the job to the rookie, that's going to be a little tough for him to be that sleeper essentially. But so that's the NFC East. And so we'll move on to the NFC North, and we'll start with the Green Bay Packers. They had one job in the draft to do, and I'm pretty sure they failed at it. So the sleeper players I picked are all of the wide receivers for the Packers, because if they don't perform, I think you're going to see the heat's going to get turned on to Aaron Rodgers, and then the upper organization is going to be like, well, we got Love over here on the bench. Maybe he can do it with the receivers. Rodgers can't do it anymore.
True. Yeah. So I actually had a fellow RTF sportscaster on our show last week when we broke down the Green Bay Packers, and I asked him the same exact question. The Packers had one job in the draft, and that was draft wide receiver. Why didn't they go that route? And Green Bay, Greg, shout out to him, says they didn't need a receiver. They have a bunch of solid 2, 3, 4-year receivers on that team. He brought out Funchins and Lazard. He said, remember those two names. Those two guys are going to have impactful years, big breakout years, because everybody is going to be double teaming Devontae Adams. You're going to have a safety sliding over the top. Funchins and Lazard are going to have big years. So he said, watch out for them. The wide receiver core is just fine. Aaron Rodgers is just fine. He says you need to watch out for the tailback because they don't know if the running back can carry the load this season.
Right. Yeah. I feel like that's been a thing for the Packers for the last, decade. It seems like it's
ever since they let it go Eddie Lacy because he was overweight or whatever. They haven't had that solid running back that they can count on.
Yeah, they've been very much a pass happy team compared to kind of some other NFC North teams that are very ground and pound. So let's move on to the Minnesota Vikings. So I think the player on the Vikings to watch is the rookie wide receiver, Justin Jefferson. Now, I actually did in my mock draft, I did have him projected to go to the Vikings, so that was kind of good to see there. But I'm really curious to see is, and some people disagree with this, but how does this rookie fill that void with Adam Thielen stepping up and Stephon Diggs kind of getting shipped over to Buffalo? What is this rookie going to do? Now, I'm assuming Thielen's going to be the number one receiver, and Jefferson's probably going to be at number 2 for him. Do they still have the same kind of passing game for the Vikings with Kirk Cousins? I don't know.
I think they have to mock what the Kansas City Chiefs offense does with Tyreek Hill. You have to put him in many positions, into the slot, into the number 1 receiver, even at a tailback. Like, you have to get the ball in his hands somehow, some way, at least 15 times again. I think he ran like a 4.3 40-yard dash at the combine. Very, very fast guy, very, very shifty. I remember him watching in the championship game. You just have to get him in the open field. So if the Vikings coaching staff can get him in the open field, get the ball in his hands, he will have a very impactful season. Kirk Cousins will no longer be a dud on prime times. They could go 13-3.
Yeah.
But I don't see the coaching staff being able to get Jeffries in the right positions to excel. So I think he's going to kind of be a bust.
Yeah. Yeah. You can see it. I feel like LSU is one of those tricky schools that you see receivers coming out of sometime. I mean, like OBJ and Landry came out of there, but they've done some good things, but they're in Cleveland right now with a inept quarterback and an inept coaching staff last year that they just can't get the job done. So the receivers look bad. But I digress. Moving on.
It'll be interesting if the coaching staff can adapt to the players. That's what makes the coaching staff great, is being able to adapt to the players. So hopefully for Viking fans, they can do that. But for me, I hope they fall flat on their face because I have the Lions winning that division. But I digress.
So moving on to the Chicago Bears, I went with inside linebacker Roquan Smith. He kind of had a down year last year when I was looking at his stats. I mean, granted, he only played 12 games, so he really wasn't that far off in stats. But can the Bears really get that defense that everyone was afraid of 2 years ago with Smith and Khalil Mack being there and that defensive line kind of getting up there and performing? Like, we all know they're going to have to carry the offense half the season.
Right.
Because they're going to be playing the carousel of quarterbacks. I mean, we hope not, but it's likely. And it's kind of interesting to see. Like, I looked at his stats the other day, and his rookie year breakout stats here. But then kind of last year it went down a little bit. I'm curious to see if he can make a bounce back.
Yeah, many people will say it is the sophomore slump. The second the second year NFL players always always hit that wall, yada, 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 and they always have a great third year. Well, he was obviously injured last season. I believe he's fully healthy now. He's been resting all of off season, and he still has Khalil Mack on the outside. So Khalil Mack's going to get a lot of attention. Roquan Smith is going to get a lot of one-on-ones, if not even blockers on him, like at all. So I do like that pick. Roquan Smith, I bet you he has at least 100 tackles this season in the first 14 games.
I want to see that. Nothing like some good defense play. All right. So last but not least, your predicted division champs here.
Not predicted the division champs.
Detroit Lions, I took running back Kerryon Johnson. He's had flashes. He struggles with injury. It happened last year again for him. He gets injured and just struggle. But then the Lions go and draft DeAndre Swift out of Georgia.
Right.
So is Kerryon really going to be that useful? But they're gonna rely on the rookie's legs more often, because you see it a lot in the NFL and aging NFL running backs. If you start being injury prone, you're out the door by 30.
Right.
So I'm curious to see, can Kerryon be the starter, and is he going to feel the pressure from the rookie and potentially lose that starting job, or worse, not stay healthy and lose it that way? Because I would rather lose a starting job because I'm not performing than to get hurt, get carted off the field, and watch the rookie go in there and run a touchdown.
Right. So honestly, drafting DeAndre Swift was probably a blessing in decides for Kerryon, because the NFL, they do that 1-2 punch now. You see many NFL teams have two running backs. Look at the Cleveland Browns; they have Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Look at the Kansas City Chiefs; they have two backs that they use. Actually, they use three backs quite effectively. It sucks for fantasy points, but this is real life. This is a blessing in disguise for Kerryon Johnson. Last year he had 400 yards. I could see him doubling that, if not breaking the 1,000 yard mark. And I see Swift doing the same thing. So either running back on this Detroit Lions team, it can be your sleeper pick 100%. I do like your Kerryon Johnson pick.
All right. Yeah. So moving on to the NFC South, let's start out with the New Orleans Saints. So for the Saints, kind of similar to the Ryans, I went with the running back here. But I'm looking at Latavius Murray. Can Murray be the complementary back that Alvin Kamara needs, like when Mark Ingram was there? Like when Mark Ingram was there and Alvin Kamara came into the league, like that was a great 1-2 punch. Obviously, players are going to go where they can make more money, better deals happen, better opportunities. When I was looking at the roster, I didn't see a lot of names in the running back depth chart to say anyone's going to take that spot from Latavius Murray behind Alvin Kamara. But the question is kind of like, can Murray complement Kamara enough that the Saints can have a running game so that Drew Brees quits extending his records.
Right.
But yeah, it's kind of, I feel like Alvin Kamara had a down year last year, but it was also the kind of the thing where you notice that it's kind of the time that I noticed that, hey, Mark Ingram's not there anymore. They're not the same running back duo as they used to be. And it'd be interesting to see if Murray kind of fills those shoes a little better this year.
Yeah, the problem with Murray, that he is entering his 7th or 8th year into the NFL. You said it earlier, the shelf life on an NFL running back is 4 to 5 years. He's definitely over that limit, 100%. And we are in a pass-happy league now. Let's be totally honest. If a quarterback's not throwing 40 times a game, we're like, oh, this is boring. Why aren't they throwing the ball more? Why aren't they scoring more points? but I don't like this. I don't like this Murray pick simply because I think he is only going to be in there on 2nd and 1, 3rd and 1 type of situations too, where they pound the ball in just so they don't have a chance of hurting a smaller Alvin Kamara. Because he is a smaller running back. You want him to run outside the tackles and run screens. So you're going to use and abuse Murray this season on 2nd and 1, 3rd and 1 type situations. So if you want to call that a sleeper pick, yes. But as far as stat wise, I don't see him raising any eyebrows this season.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The stats might not be there, but just being able to, like those short guard situations, you want that kind of that bigger back.
Those are big,
being able to pound it up the middle. And I feel like that's what they had with Ingram and Kamara when Ingram was there. So I'm more just keeping an eye on it to see, can they reduce the amount of times Kamara has to be in that situation where he has to use his weight, which is not a ton, and try to get through that middle.
Let me go on a little tangent here. Like I have been predicting some trades this season. I think Derek Carr is going to end up in New England by the end of the season. Ooh. I would not be surprised if a New York Jets running back, they have like 6 or 7 up there, comes down to New Orleans, aka Frank Gore. I would not be surprised if Frank Gore ends up in New Orleans by the end of the season.
Oh, all right. That's not a bad. That wouldn't be too shocking for me. I feel like Frank Gore's starting to turn into Ryan Fitzpatrick a little bit here. Kind of. I
mean, he's 17 years, so yeah,
making his way around the league.
He wants to win a ring.
Yeah, you got to go where it is, where the talent is. All right. So moving on to the Falcons, I went with Dante Fowler, defensive end for them. I was a little surprised when I was looking at his stats that his stats are so up and down from year to year. Like 1 year he'll be good, next year absolutely garbage. Like it's just he falls off these stats so quickly. But last year he had kind of a better year, and he comes to he's on a Falcons team that struggles to stay healthy on the defense. Like I would think he's projected for a down stat year. He's going to struggle even more when that Falcons defense just all gets injured and he's the only one out there.
Right. So the Falcons are a team that is just good enough not to be bad, but not bad enough to get the first round pick, that type of thing. So Dante Fowler, when he was with the Jacksonville Jaguars, he was stat-wise, he was great. Why? Because there was no expectations on him to do well whatsoever. When he went to the Rams, he was expected to dominate, right? Because of all those stats that he had in Jacksonville. He had down year. Maybe because it was double team. Maybe it was because of the hype, yada, yada, yada. Now I think we are expecting him to have a down year. So he is going to rise to the occasion and do well. He is going to do much what he did in Jacksonville because there's no pressure on this team to win. Like I feel like on that Rams team that he was on, that defense was a very aging defense. They were all in a must-win Super Bowl now type of mindset. And now that he's on the Atlanta Falcons, he's probably a rebuilding team. I think he'll do well. I think that is a great pick.
All right. Perfect. So moving on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I went with defensive tackle. I'm going to say his name wrong. Vita Vea. Hope I didn't say it wrong, but I believe he's second year out of Washington now. I can't remember. Anyway, he's kind of been progressively getting better.
Right.
That front seven in the Buccaneers, it's surprisingly they've been really well. Like you see the explosion from Shaq Barrett come out this past season. We're expecting it again, but you don't usually see a ton of explosion out of their defensive tackles in any team usually. I mean, granted, when Sue was still pretty young and fresh, like you're always worried about him. Like you're always worried about, you always want to block him, but you always worry about those edge guys more.
Yeah.
So, okay. I'm just kind of curious whether Vita Vea can kind of continue to be that complementary pass rush that can really help that front seven progress even more. Now that they have Tom Brady on the other side, that's going to put them in better game-winning situations.
Right. So when you look at this roster on the Tampa Bay Bucks sideline, they are riddled with big names. They got Sue. They got JPP. They got Shaquille Barrett, Devin White. These are all big names 7 years ago, right?
Right.
7 years ago. So the problem with like this is, I mean, yes, you have to respect Sue some. You have to respect JPP some. But once Vita Vea starts having a breakout season, what are they going to do? They're going to double team him because they're going to see that Sue is not as fast as he used to be on the outside. JPP isn't as fast as he was on the outside either. So I don't think. I mean, defensive linemen are hard to measure sleepers because do you measure them off of stats, or do you measure them? Hey, he's taking up 2 blockers to free Devin White. So if you want to classify as that as a sleeper pick, as yes, he's going to take two blockers on every play, then yes, I will agree with you on that. Now, if you say he's going to have 50, 60 tackles, no, I don't think he'll get like he'll do that.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm just looking for more of a complementary. Like if he can take up 2 tackles, that frees up Shaq Barrett crashing down the outside. If they go that route with a blitz or using him, and that just opens up more for Shaq Barrett. Like yes, you want personal player stats to go up, but you need team stats to go up in order to win.
The eye test.
Yes. So last in the NFC South, for the Carolina Panthers, I went with rookie defensive tackle Derek Brown. He was the best graded defensive tackle in this past year's draft. Can he transition that talent into the NFL? And then you also look at with this first-year coach and Matt Rule, is Matt Rule going to have the right scheme for him on this defense?
So the one thing positive about defensive players is usually they transfer well over to the NFL. You can only rush so many times. There's only so many swim moves. There's only so many spin moves. Now, as far as the personnel packages and like if he'll get put in the right position, they still have a very good defensive coach. I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but he has been around the league for quite a while. Matt Rule did a good job of picking him up, and I think the Carolina Panthers defense will surprise some people, and I think this guy will have one of those sleeper years. Yes, his game will transition well over to the NFL. I mean, he's 320 pounds. I mean, he's going to be tough to move just standing there. So any athletic ability that like he has is just an improvement on that side. Like he'll be fine.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So the last but not least division, we had the NFC West. And let's start with the Super Bowl runner-ups, the San Francisco 49ers. Now, they have one heck of a defense, and I feel like they did nothing but get better over the last season. They lost to Forrest Buckner. I still think they're a top 10, top 5 defense for sure. So the player that I'm watching is Fred Warner. Now, who doesn't like a guy named Fred?
Right.
I don't know. I don't know many Freds that I'm like, I'm not a big fan of him. But I think in that position, in that middle linebacker position, you're kind of like that commander of the defense, and you see. I feel like you see a lot of times when teams are rebuilding, that player is besides the quarterback, it's one of the most important players most important positions to draft well. So I'm interested to see whether or not this defense can continue on this next season, and can he continue to bring this defense together and maintain that defensive ranking kind of near the top of the league.
Yeah, he is going to do all those things because of look at the people he has in front of him, taking up all that loose meat. Like you have Nick Bosa, you have Javon Kinlaw, like up there, two really, really great athletes that is going to allow him to run free. And me being a former linebacker myself, I loved when I had a 400-pound defensive tackle taking up two blockers and I could run free. Yeah. He is going to get to run free a lot this season with Nick Bosa and Javon Kinlaw taking up many, many blockers. A offense is going to scheme around those two guys, giving the linebackers free range. He's going to have a great year. And the San Francisco 49ers have history of darn good linebackers. I mean, he's going to follow in those footsteps and have a great year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I 100% agree with that. So, moving on to the Seahawks. You know, they almost beat the Bears for a number of tight ends on the team. So I'm just going to watch all the tight ends and see what happens. Because it seems like to me, anytime I watch a Seahawks game, Russell Wilson's running for his life.
Yeah.
Because there's no short pass game. And he's got to run away from the defender because the line failed him, and then he's got to heave it down the field because that's the only open receiver. Like, where are these tight ends that can't just run that shallow route, and then Russell Wilson can just dump it off? The tight end's open, you run a hook up the sideline, and you get what you get.
Right. Greg Olsen's going to have a huge year for the Seattle Seahawks. Why? Because that is how he's made all of his money on these teams that he has been with, are these short and immediate passing games. Play breaks down, he breaks off to like an out route, taps toes the sideline, boom, 5-6 yards. Yeah. Plus they got two big name receivers, two fast receivers, big receivers. Tyler Lockett's, I mean, he isn't big in stature, but he is big in playmaking ability. And what's the other guy? DK Metcalf. He's like 6'6", 240 pounds. I mean, Greg Olsen is going to feast this year. Get him in fantasy 100%.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it'll be. I feel like for years you've always just, there goes Russell Wilson running down the field because he had to run away from the defender. Like, you just want to see a more complete team. Like, don't let the plays fall apart. Get that, and yeah, like you said, Greg Olsen is probably gonna have a really good year there because he's the veteran presence all those other tight ends are gonna need to know how to play a defense. And
I think they drafted a tight end too, right? If I'm not mistaken.
I want to say they did. So they had a couple young guys last year, I thought. But they got quite a big tight end room there. All right. Moving on to the Rams. Kind of similar to where I was looking with the Seahawks. I went with Tyler Higbee, the tight end. He hasn't had like breakout star stats, but his stats over the last couple of years, they're always getting better. And I really want to see how he can take the next step. Kind of similar to the tight ends in Seattle. How can Tyler Higbee help Jared Goff stay average? Because that's all I see Jared Goff as is an average quarterback.
Unfortunately, I think Tyler Higbee is going to take a step back this season because of they lost the running back. What is his name? Todd Gurley. He went to the Falcons. Everybody has caught up to Sean McVay's play calling. You know, Sean McVay's kind of a flash in the pan. Just like Jared Goff, kind of a flash in the pan. You want to talk about a quarterback running for their lives this year, Jared Goff is going to be it. And unfortunately, he is just not football IQ enough to look for Tyler Higbee in that dump down situation. He is always going to want to push the ball down the field to Cooper Kupp, and unfortunately, Higbee is going to suffer this season.
Yeah, and I think that's why he hasn't had phenomenal stats the last couple years. So I mean, yeah, he could just be that lower end stat tight end, and
if he was on any other team, I think he would have a breakout year. But the fact that he's on a Rams that's going to finish 2-12 or 2-14, I should say. I mean, it sucks for him.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And the last team of the NFC East, or the NFC, correction there, the Arizona Cardinals. Now, they got DeAndre Hopkins. They have Larry Fitzgerald. I know they're going to be okay. I'm watching Christian Kirk. He came into the league. He kind of had some flashes. Now he's the third string receiver, but you still have the great Larry Fitzgerald there. And now you bring in a stud talent and DeAndre Hopkins to help Kyler Murray continue to develop. I would keep an eye on Christian Kirk in the slot or in that rotation, and you're not going to see him with one-on-one or being pressed by your top-end corners on that defense. It's going to be a safety or an outside linebacker if they're running 5 wide or you're not running a tight end in the formation. I think he's going to be a guy that he might not have the stats because of Hopkins and Fitzgerald there, but he's going to see more action.
You know, I would agree with you if this was 2 years down the road. Just the fact that Hopkins this is his first year in Arizona, I think Kyler Murray wants to really utilize him and kind of, project him up to that number 1 seed. And then you're going to see Larry Fitzgerald probably by week 3 or week 4, he'll be like, hey, this is my final year. And he's going to be basically want to get him like a 100 yards each game just to finish his career on top. And Christian Kirk, he has a history of getting injured. I think he's only played 10 or 11 games the last couple seasons, so total of 20 games out of the possible 32 games. So 70% of the time he is in there. And I do like everything that you said. He is going to get a lot of very, very soft coverage, probably a linebacker on him a lot of the times. And if Kyler Murray grows as a quarterback and is able to see that pre-snap, he is going to get a lot of action. But I don't think Kyler Murray is ready for that step yet. He is going to take a big digression this season because of the sophomore slump and because many people have them projected to do so well. And I'm not for sure if he's ready for that pressure. So Christian Kirk's going to suffer for that stat-wise. He might make a few big plays here or there, but definitely not raising any eyebrows this season.
All right, yeah, I see it. So that's the end of our show, everyone. I want to thank you, Michael, for coming on the show and helping me with this main segment here with the absence of Dylan. And
congratulations, Dylan, by the way, beautiful baby girl.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Congratulations, Dylan. So just as we always end the show, Michael, you want to sign us off?
I don't know how you guys normally do it, man. Sorry.
That's all right. All right. So check in on and off the field on Tuesday night coming up here. And as always, all hail the Jockstrap King.